So today we're going to turn 3 simple things into an alcohol burning stove. Graphite impregnated wool, Fancy Feast can, and a can of tomato paste. When we're done, we're going to have a alcohol burning Fancy Feast stove, and we'll show the operation of that at the end of the video. Today it's snowing, so we had to find some inside projects, so we're going to have a series of alcohol burning stove videos coming up here in the next week. So the first thing we're going to do is feed the cat. Empty the Fancy Feast can and then wash it out. You take your tomato paste can and the can opener, and we're going to take top and bottom off and then wash that out. So we got the top of the tomato paste can and it's clean, and now we can take the bottom side out. So now we got a tube. We'll set that aside. We'll go back to the Fancy Feast can, and there's a sharp little lip inside there, and all we're going to do is go all the way around it with a pair of pliers and crush that lip flat. It's going to take you a second. So we've got the inner rim of the Fancy Feast can all crushed down. Now we need to figure out the length for the tomato paste can. I like using the upper edge, it's just a little bit wider. So to figure out what we're going to need, I'm going to stick that in the Fancy Feast can. There's different dimensions you can use. I like 1.25 inches to get the right flame. Some go 1.5 inches, but I think 1.25 inches works about the best. So I'm going to measure here and get 1.25 inches. And then I'm going to find the groove that works in, and it's going to be that one right there. So now what I'm going to do is slice off that bottom edge in that groove. So I'm going to be, for 1.25 inches, I'm going to be on the second groove up. So I'm just going to follow that groove all the way around and get rid of this excess on the can. So we got that all flattened off, and that's going to fit in there. The next step we're going to have to do is take out, I like to take out 4 just because of the way the grinding wheel takes it, but we need a little bit of tiny cutout in the bottom. So you've got your solid ring on the top, and then that sits down in. So we're going to take out 4 tiny little notches, just enough for when we dump the alcohol in there, it can escape out into our felt sheet. You can get it absorbed. Take my pliers and I'm just going to crush down any sharp edges that are left on the inside. Fancy Feast can, tomato paste can. Now we need to fill the inside of this with a sheet of that wool. So we're going to mark the wool out and cut that, wrap it around and get our length. So what we want is the wool to be flush with the top of the Fancy Feast can. You can see this one, how I'm just slightly over. Just a little bit over is okay, but don't go down inside. If you come out too far, the wool is just going to eventually burn. But we just kind of want that flush with the top, so as the alcohol off gases and comes up through the wool, the flame's actually going to kind of dance right on top of it and not be able to burn the wool. Next thing we're going to want is a straight edge. And that looks pretty good right there. Now we'll go, that's good. We're going to wrap this around the tomato paste can, good and tight. Overlap them too. Now where they overlap, I'm just going to pick a spot in the middle with a utility knife and then cut one straight line all the way across, and then when we take out the 2 extra pieces, that's going to leave us with a good perfect cut. It doesn't take much to cut this felt. So we got 2 little scrap pieces, and when we wrap that around, it fits perfectly. So we'll take our Fancy Feast can, we'll put our felt down inside. I'm going to fight that in there a little bit because it's a tight, snug fit. And we'll take that and screw it right down in there. And now, the Fancy Feast can. That quick. We'll get something under this one, and I'm going to get my container. And we'll show filling it up and boiling a little bit. But first time you do this new one, so you can get to this one, these have like a Teflon lining or something in there. So keep in mind, you want to burn this off at least one time before you're actually cooking something on it, because you don't want all that Teflon gas rolling up into your water when it boils. I will pull the sticker off the Fancy Feast label, and so that doesn't catch on fire. But we'll get ourselves some alcohol and something under this, and we'll light it up for you. So I'll show you my little setup. This is a Stanley 20-ounce stainless steel pot. That opens up, and then everything fits down inside there pretty nicely. Got some shampoo containers that we filled up. These are about a 1-ounce bottle. What we're filling this with is alcohol. I use Heet dry gas. Yellow bottle, not the red bottle. The red bottle contains fuel additives that you don't want burning and mixing in with your food. So yellow bottle only if you're using dry gas. Inside there, again, we have our Fancy Feast stove and a couple cups so we can share, and then our pot. That's going to sit on there really nicely. It's a good diameter. When we're outside, get a heat shield to go around this, but for the indoor purposes, we're just going to let it go. So what we're going to do, rid of our cups. I'm going to use the old Fancy Feast just because I don't want to burn all this Teflon in the house. All we're going to do is dump the alcohol right straight down into the stove. That's about 1 ounce, and that works pretty good to boil. A couple cups might be a little bit much, but I think where we're indoors and the water's somewhat warm, this ounce will do it pretty good. So we get our fuel dumped in there, and what's happening right now is this wool is actually absorbing it all up around the edges. So when we go to light it, we'll light out here on the edge. It's going to be hard to see, but if you can see that, the flame spreading around there right now. So I'm going to take my 2 cups, fill that up, and and get the timer ready. So I'm going to put that on. We'll start the timer. Put the lid on too, just to give it a fighting chance. But you can see the timer running, and we'll come back as soon as it starts boiling. We're at 4 minutes. And we've got a fair amount of bubbles going on there. So I'm a little bit behind, but it was about 5 minutes and we had a rolling boil on 2 cups of water. So I hadn't intended on doing this, but the boys tell me you got to do a comparison video. Go outside in the middle of a blizzard and set up your little heat shield and see how long it takes to boil 2 cups of water outdoors at 0 degrees in a blizzard. So we're going to get dressed and go outside and see how long it takes to boil 2 cups of water in a blizzard with a fancy feast stove. So 2 cups fills up 2 cups of hot chocolate, and that's kind of still flickering a little bit. We have not even begun to burn out that ounce of fuel, so I guess indoors you don't need an ounce, but I think it's going to take us a whole ounce of alcohol outside. So there's no way to shut off a fancy feast stove other than smother it, but you're still going to have some alcohol left. So we're just going to let this sit here and burn out so we know we truly have no fuel left in the stove before we go outside. Clinton, Maine, blizzard warning. Feels like -11. Let's see how fast water will boil. So we're going to try to get out of the wind a little bit. It's windy today, probably at least 10-15 mile-an-hour winds. We'll get dug down here a little bit, find us a little place to work.
Put those trees up so the wind's not there. Yeah.
So we're gonna get set up here. We showed you what's normally inside the can, but when we don't need the coffee cups, this is what we got inside. Fuel, fancy feast stove, a little rubber insulating mat for the ground to try to keep some of the cold from coming up, and then our little weatherproof screen. So we got our water. So we're going to start the timer now. We'll be back as soon as it's boiling.
What? Wait, go get ready to jump. Yeah. No! No! Layla, she's ripping my glove. Hey, Trini! Layla! Layla, no! Layla.
So 3:23 and we got some bubbles starting. So we're at 6:10 right now, and we've got a lot of bubbles, but no rolling boil yet. I'm suspecting it's going to take about 10 minutes. That's usually about what we get out on the ice to make a cup of coffee. So we'll come back in just a few. So we're at 10 minutes exactly right now. We'll check and see what we got. We got a lot of steam coming out of it, but roll and boil. 10 minutes. But keep in mind, if you're ever doing this outside, this is warm alcohol. Cold alcohol doesn't perform the same. This is tap water from inside the house, so it's exactly the same as the last boil that we did. So 10 minutes, 2 cups of water on a Fancy Feast cat food stove. So we're burning off that Teflon right now on the new stove.